Happy New Year to each and everyone! Welcome to ACCQ Continuing Professional Education. Unang pasok ng taon or unang lesson natin para sa taong 2021. It's about PFRS or Philippine Financial Reporting Standard or first adoption to PFRS 1. So we're going to talk about this in a while. We're setting rule 1 that mano pa lang, PFRS na kagad yung pag-uusapan natin. Talaga namang napaka-interesting na subject matter, no? Itong PFRS. Pag sinabing PFRS, by the way, ito yung pinaka-biblia ng Philippine accounting na adapt ito sa IFRS or International Financial Reporting Standard. So dito tayo sumusunod yung mga accounting principles natin. No, nung panahon ko, no, hindi wala pang PFRS noon, pero meron na rin yung part of the generally accepted accounting principle. So yung ginagamit namin noon is yung SFAS or Statement of Financial Accounting Standards. So ngayon PFRS naman. So ito yung nandito yung mga standards. Now, dito sa Pilipinas, maraming mga entity na nag-a-adapt na doon sa PFRS kasi ito yung guidelines sa Philippine Financial Reporting, especially sa general purpose financial statements. Now, paano pagka mag-a-adapt, first time adapter ng isang company to PFRS? Paano ba mako-considered na first time adapter or una siya nag-adapt dun sa Philippine Financial Reporting Standard? Well, a first-time adopter is an entity that presents its financial statements for the first time in conformity with the Philippine Financial Reporting Standard or PFRS. In other words, an entity is considered as a first-time adopter when, for the first time, such entity makes an explicit and unreserved statement that its general purpose financial statements is in compliance with the Philippine Financial Reporting Standard or PFRS. Ayan. So medyo nosebleed yung definition pa lang, no. Now pumunta tayo dito sa some of the theories dito sa PFRS, no, yung first time adapters. So, first PFRS financial statement. Oops. The first PFRS financial statements are the first annual statements in which an entity adopts PFRS by an explicit, please take note of this, explicit and unreserved statement of compliance with PFRS. Nandito lang pala, no? Sana binasa ko na lang, no? So, masasabi raw na first time adopter yung company na yun sa PFRS pag present nila for yung first annual statement nila, no, usually dito sa Securities and Exchange Commission, no, sa SEC, no, because it's a general purpose financial statement. If an entity adopts PFRS by an explicit, kumbaga nakalagay doon na ito yung sinusunod nila, PFRS. Explicit, hayag, and unreserved. Walang reserve, no? Unreserved. Of compliance with PFRS, unreserved, no? Ano ba yung magandang yung sa Tagalog yung unreserved, no? Kasi pag sinabing reserve parang yung medyo mahiyain, no? So ito siguro yung hayag na hayag, no? Yan. So unreserved. Financial statements presented by an entity in the current year would qualify as first PFRS financial statements under the following conditions. So, masasabi natin itong company na to is a first time adopter ng PFRS pagka nandito itong mga kondisyon na to, no? To 1 to 4. So unahin muna natin. Number 1, when an entity presented its most recent previews. Yung recent previews. Halimbawa, 2020 ngayon, yung 2019, no? Financial statement under National GAAP. Okay? Or generally accepted accounting principle inconsistent with the PFRS in all respects. So masasabing first time na inadapt niya yung PFRS pag yung statement niya halimbawa noong 2019 is under the National GAAP or yung tinatawag na generally accepted accounting principles, pero hindi siya PFRS, pero mga standards na inconsistent with PFRS. Ayan. And under also number 1, yung letter B, in conformity with PFRS in all respects, but these statements did not contain an explicit, so wala raw ito, so did not contain an explicit and unreserved statement. So hindi nagsasabi na under kami ng PFRS. Although in conformity with PFRS, yung dati niyang statements, pero walang explicit saka hindi unreserved. So hindi hayag at hindi hayag na hayag na yung kanilang statement na hindi sila na nagko-comply sila sa PFRS. Yung letter C naman, containing an explicit statement of compliance with some but not all. So, ito naman, nandun yung meron silang explicit statement, no? Hinayag nila na they are in compliance with PFRS pero hindi lahat. No? With some but not all PFRS. And so, it is also considered as first-time adopters. And letter D, under the National GAAP with a reconciliation of selected figures. No? Selected figures to amounts determined under PFRS. Yan. So, under National GAAP with a reconciliation, kumbaga, nire-reconcile yung mga generally accepted principles na accounting principles dun sa statement, no? Tapos meron ring inire-reconcile doon sa PFRS na standard. And yung pangalawa, when an entity prepared financial statement in the previous period under PFRS but not the financial statement were only for internal use. Alam naman natin yung financial reporting is normal typically for external purpose yan, mga general purpose financial statement for external users, no, kasi maraming mga yung mga stakeholders yan, like yung investor, government agency, so it's more of like external use. Pero it is considered as first time kung ginagamit to dun sa internal use lang before, no? And then number 3, when an entity prepared financial statements in the previous period under PFRS for consolidation purposes without preparing a complete set of financial statements. So, kino-consolidate lang ito. Pero hindi sila gumagawa ng complete set of financial statement. Alam niyo sa consolidated financial statement, yung merong parent company, tapos meron siyang mga subsidiary ng mga companies. So, gumagawa sila ng kino-consolidate lang nila yung let's say in particular, let's say yung sa comprehensive income, pero hindi lahat nung complete set nung financial statement, no? Ano ba yung complete set? Yung balance sheet or yung statement of financial position, yung cash flows, and of course yung notes to financial statement, no? And of course yung changes of equity, no? Aside from dun sa yung statement of comprehensive income. And yung number 4, when an entity did not present financial statements in the previous period. So kung hindi siya nag-present ng financial statement in the previous period. So, moving forward, dito naman tayo sa date of transition to PFRS. So, ito yung mga companies na magta-transition na to PFRS. So, the date of transition to PFRS refers to the beginning of the earliest period for which an entity presents full comparative information under PFRS in its first financial statement. So, dun sa una nilang sa financial statement under PFRS, merong comparative yun. No? Yung, let's say, yung previously issued statement, saka yung statement na kung saan sila nag-adapt na into PFRS. So, the date of transition to PFRS depends on two factors, namely, letter A, the date of adoption to PFRS. So, ipapakita natin mamaya example doon. And letter B, the number of years of comparative information that the entity decides to present together with the financial statements in the year of adoption. So, let's take an example here. An entity presented its most recent financial statement under previous GAAP or generally accepted accounting principles on December 31, 2020. So, hindi pa siya yung full PFRS, no? GAAP pa yung ginagamit niya as of December 31, 2020. Now, the entity decided to adopt PFRS on December 31, 2021 and to present a one-year comparative information for 2020. So, ang gagawin nila, yung earliest date, which is the beginning of the earliest period for which the entity should present, is January 1, 2020. So, ipapakita nila yung January 1, 2020, which ginagamit pa nila yung GAAP, and yung sa 2021, yung under PFRS na. So, in this case, the opening PFRS statement of the financial position would be dated January 1, 2020 kasi ito yung earliest, no, yung pagkukumparahin, no. So under PFRS na siya. Para comparative, titignan ko ano yung kasi mas makikita kung ano yung impact doon sa financial statement pagka the same standard yung ginagamit, no. And then however, if the entity decided to present a 2-year comparative information, so depende rin sa company, ano? For 2019 and 2020, so the beginning of the earliest period for which the entity should present full comparative would be on January 1, 2019. So in this case, the opening PFRS statement of financial position is on January 1, 2019. So pareho na silang i-restate siya sa PFRS yung January 1, 2019 na statement, saka yung 2020 statement. So, magmula January 1, 2019 hanggang December 31, 2019, so i-restate siya sa PFRS. Tapos yung para sa 2020 under PFRS. So, para mas maging comparative. Forward now sa opening PFRS ng isang first-time adopter. So, an opening PFRS statement of financial position is the statement of financial position prepared by a first-time, yung unang palang adoption to PFRS on the date of the transition to PFRS. So, the opening PFRS statement of financial position, ito yung starting point for accounting in accordance with PFRS. So, halimbawa, 2021, this is the transition date. So, ito yung opening statement. In preparing the opening statement of financial position, an entity is required to recognize all assets and liabilities required by PFRS. So, i-recognize nila yung mga so, kailangan in compliance na sila with PFRS. The recognized assets and liabilities not permitted by PFRS. Yan, so hindi parang tatanggalin na nila yung mga assets and liabilities that is not permitted by the PFRS. Halimbawa, dun sa dating standard, merong tinatawag na mga yung mga unusual events or extraordinary events. Under PFRS, there's no such thing. Reclassify items in relation to this, no? Reclassify items that is recognized under the previous GAAP as one type of asset, liabilities, or equity, but a different type of asset, liability, or equity under PFRS. So yung mga assets na meron pa nun na pwedeng i-reclassify siya as one type of asset. And yung sa naman, sa under PFRS naman, it's another type, no? So i-reclassify yan. So to become more comparative. And last is measure all recognized assets and liabilities in compliance with PFRS, kasi nga nag-adapt na sila sa PFRS. Meron kasing mga mga accounts nun na under dito sa PFRS meron ng difference 'yon, no? For example, ngayon ang ginagamit natin is yung cash and cash equivalents. Pero dati yung cash lang under GAAP. So, merong pwede i-reclassify yung mga assets na which are not necessarily cash. No, pero kasi dito sa under PFRS, kumbaga kasama na yon as one line item as cash and cash equivalents. So, first PFRS statements, if the entity adopts PFRS for the first time in the current year, its first PFRS financial statement include the following. So ito yung mga requirements, no? Pagka yung first time adopter to PFRS. Number one is restatement of financial position at the end of the current year, end of the prior year, and at the date of transition to PFRS. So yung current year, which is 2020, previous year, which is 2019, and at the start of the transition. For example, yung date of transition, let's say 2021, yan, so PFRS. So tatlong financial position, yung 3 statements of financial position. Next is yung 2 statement of comprehensive income for the current year and prior year. So yung kanina, balance sheet or yung financial position, yung pangalawa naman, yung comprehensive income for the current year and from the prior year. And yung number 3, 2 separate income statement for the current year as well as yung sa prior year. Tapos yung pang-apat, it's statement of cash flows for the current and the prior year. And yung pang-lima is statement of changes in equity for the current and the prior year. And yung last is yung notes to financial statements including comparative information. Okay, so let's take up an example so we can apply whatever theories we have learned a while ago. So Universal Company is preparing to adopt IFRS. So IFRS, PFRS, the same because yung PFRS nag-a-adapt siya from the IFRS or International Financial Reporting Standard. For the first time on December 31, 2020, in preparing its opening statement of financial position on January 1, 2019, the entity identified the following differences between IFRS and its previous GAAP. So meron raw differences between yung 2 reporting standards, yung IFRS and yung previous GAAP na ginagamit ng entity. So gagamitin natin to as adjustment para doon sa opening doon sa January 1, 2019. So i-restate natin siya into IFRS. Now, let's skip doon sa requirement na kagad, no? So prepare journal entries needed in the preparation of the opening statement of the financial position. So kasi itong from letters A to D, ito yung mga adjustments na gagawa natin ng journal entries. So letter A, under the previous GAAP, the entity had recorded proposed dividends of 500,000 as a current liability. So In other words, dito sa GAAP, ni-recognize siya as liability. When in fact, hindi naman i-recognize natin siya under dito sa using IFRS. So we have the first journal entry here sa letter A. So requirement number 1 is journal entries. So this would be a debit to. So since yung liability, ang normal balance niyan is credit kasi ni-recognize nila dito using yung previous GAAP as a liability, therefore credit nila, i-debit ngayon natin. So debit dividends payable. Okay, so dividends payable for 500,000 and we will credit retained earnings. So lahat nung adjusted accounts, didiretso na natin dun sa equity. Or in which case dito sa corporation, it's retained earnings. So diretso na dun kasi dito dun naman lahat yung parang puntahan. Since this is a real account, so retained earnings, a real account for equity transactions. Okay, so this is for also yung mga income statement transactions, no? So dito pumapasok. So this is for 500,000. Now letter B that is under the previous GAAP, the entity had deferred advertising cost of 4 million. So in other words, itong deferred advertising cost, prepaid yan under GAAP. So well, nag-expire na yan. So hindi na siya prepaid. So asset siya. Normally pagka-asset, ang normal balance yan is debit. I-credit natin ngayon itong prepaid advertising and i-debit natin, diretso na kagad yun dun sa retained earnings. So babawasan natin yung retained earnings by debiting it for retained earnings. So this would be 4 million. And a credit to prepaid advertising. Prepaid advertising also for 4 million. Yeah. Okay. And then letter C, the entity did not recognize. So yun, nandito na tayo sa pangatlong adjusting entry, no? Adjusting data. So letter C, the entity did not recognize a provision for warranty of 1.5 million because the concept of constructive obligation was not recognized under the previous GAAP. So in other words, overstated yung kanilang income noon, which makes yung retained earnings nila also overstated kasi since yung income pumapasok yan doon sa retained earnings. Therefore, babawasan natin yung retained earnings nila. Okay, to recognize yung warranty liability. So this would be a debit to retained earnings that would be for 1,500,000. And a credit to warranty liability. So this is warranty liability. This is for 1.5 million also. Okay, so ni-recognize natin siya under yung IFRS. And the last one, which is the entity incurred architect fees of 800,000 in the construction of building, which was put into service on January 1, 2018. Yan, so a year before nung January 1, 2019. Such costs were expensed immediately. The building had a useful life of 40 years. So itong 800,000 na to, ni-recognize siya as expense, pero meron pa siyang future benefits kasi capitalizable siya doon sa cost ng building. So i-recognize natin yan as part of the building. Okay, so this would be entry number 4. So debit building. Okay, so this is for how much? For 800,000. And of the credit there is, of course, accumulated depreciation. Okay. Nakasarado na kasi yung depreciation expense, no? So, lalagay na natin siya. Since the accumulated depreciation is a contra asset account, so i-credit natin siya. So, accumulated depreciation. Okay, since in-expense siya nung previous, so hindi naman siya nilagay as an asset. So, ang computation nito would be 800,000 divided by 40 years. So 40 years, which is yung ito yung useful life ng building. So 800,000 compute natin. So 800,000 divided by 40 years, that would be 20,000. So lalagay lang natin dito debit 20,000. Yan. Yan. Okay. Now, yung balancing figure niyan would be a credit to retained earnings. Okay, kasi additional sa asset yon yung building na yun. No? So, of course, tumaas yung asset, tumaas rin yung equity niya. So, this is for 780,000. There. Okay, now, let's take up yung number 2, compute the net adjustment to the equity as a result of the journal entries. So, madali lang yan, no? Okay, so, kukunin lang natin lahat ng mga adjustment na yan. So, una, so this would be requirement number 2. There. Yan. Okay, so, ano yung mga nandun? Dividend, that would be dividend payable. No? So, dividend payable, yun. This is adjustment sa mga, sa equity, dividend payable. So, addition siya. So, positive 500,000. And then the next one is yung prepaid advertising. So, prepaid advertising. Advert na lang, ha? Okay, so that would be 4 million. 4 million. However, this is negative kasi naka-debit yung retained earnings. So pagka naka-credit yung retained earnings, add yan. Pagka naka-debit, well, that's deduction. And then the next one is warranty liability. Warranty liability. Okay, warranty liability. So that would be also a decrease in your retained earnings for 1.5 million. Okay, and then yung last one is yung building. Okay, so kinapitalize natin yung architect's fee na 800,000 doon sa building. So that would be a positive 780. So lagay natin dito. So kukunin lang natin yung net net adjustment nito. Okay, so this is 500,000 less 4 million less 1.5 million and plus 780,000. So that would be 4,220,000. Okay, so negative yan. So kabawasan yan dun sa equity. So this would be the net adjustment. Net adjustment to equity. This is for 4,220,000. So, if you have any questions, you can write down your comments. No? Any suggested topics that you may want to take us up dito. No? So, especially ngayong 2021, so maraming mga topics tayo pwedeng i-take up. Okay, and any comments, room for improvements that you want to suggest, no? Alam mo ito, para sa mga para sa mga estudyante to, para sa inyo to, no? So just keep your comments coming, and of course subscribe, share this video to your classmates, to your colleagues, and of course God bless, stay safe, and Happy New Year.